Happy Hump Day. Welcome into our Sportsverse studios. Dre Cordero in the house. Today is National Cookie Day, Dre.
Oh, every day is National Cookie Day.
That's the realest thing you've said all week. So we're going to play a little game because Oreo put out this contest, and they've been selling this mystery-flavored Oreo all year. And so they've been taking guesses from people who have bought the Oreo, and if you guessed it correctly, you win $50,000. Well, they released what this mystery flavor is, and I'm going to give you some hints, and then you're going to guess it. So it's a sweet cinnamon flavor.
That's a hint, or is that the flavor?
That's a hint. That's a hint. No. That's what tastes in your palate.
Yeah, the flavor
Gotcha.
is an item. Yeah.
Sweet cinnamon.
Yeah.
It has a connection to La Liga, its origins.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Like, you need more hints?
I would say cinnamon.
Yeah, cinnamon. Okay.
Canela.
Canela.
No,
Okay.
that's just cinnamon in Spanish, I think.
In Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay. It's churro.
Oh, get in.
Flavored, right? Isn't that a little weird? But churro flavored cream. So one person did guess it correctly, and they won $50,000. It was not Dre Cordero.
That's genius. I did not yet.
It's really good. Honestly, though, I want to try it because I like churros, and churros obviously started in Spain.
Now
so
I want to, like, you know how you break apart an Oreo before you eat it? I want to put like a bit of churro
inside a
smash
sandwich.
it.
Ooh, I love that. Anyway,
flatten it.
let us know if you guys approve of this new flavor and if any of you have actually tried it. On our agenda today, big game, United taking on Tottenham, Mourinho's return to Old Trafford, and we haven't had Dre Cordero on the show to give us his take on this whole Pochettino and Mourinho situation. So he's going to give us his take. We're going to talk about Zlatan, who has put out a statement in GQ Italia and let his hair down too for the statement. We'll give you guys what he said there. The Copa America draw happened yesterday. We'll talk briefly about that and also do a little Ligue 1 preview because Dre Cordero is on the call for a match today.
Yes, Paris.
Yes, all this on Sports First. That starts now. All right, let's see what you guys are saying before we get into Mourinho and Pochettino. Mosadi, churro with Nutella is the best.
That's the
Ooh.
first place I went to was Nutella. The second place I went to was dulce de leche.
Oh, amazing. Okay, and you guys are already sending in your predictions, so let's get right into the match.
To be fair, like blank with Nutella and you're good. Like
Okay,
churros
that's
or
very fair.
just
Finger.
regular. Yeah.
Finger Nutella is actually the best.
Never share Nutella with Mike Fuentes.
Yeah, okay. Good point. Lesson learned. Bob Sutton, early call. It will be a close one between Man U and Spurs. Picking Spurs to win 3-2. And wow, Spurs have actually had a lot of 3-2 results lately under Jose Mourinho. On a win streak under their new manager. And what's your take on this entire Mo Spurs situation?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that particular matchup because obviously it's Mourinho's return to Old Trafford, so there's a lot going on there, a lot of intrigue. Not that United are in a very good moment, so it'll be treated, for example, if Spurs win, as like the first statement win by Jose Mourinho on his return to the Premier League. But I think that speaks of the quality of the wins that they have had, right? Because they've beaten some very beatable teams. West Ham is not a very good side. Olympiacos is okay, but again, not a huge staple of a win. And then the other victory was against Bournemouth, 3 straight for Mourinho on his return. So this could be, just because of the narrative and the storyline around it, I think the more significant sort of psychological boost for Mourinho's return to Spurs. Speaking of psychological boost, right? I think that Spurs were in a moment where Pochettino was a very, very good manager for them, and he made them relevant and he made them competitive. But we saw this summer transfer window, there were players like an Eriksen who were eager to leave, to make the jump to a Real Madrid or to that elite level, to the big time, if you want to call it that.
Right.
And I think what ended up happening in signing Jose Mourinho is that the big time came to Spurs as opposed to these players going there. And it was sort of a psychological reset for these guys that wanted the big time, they wanted those bright lights, and they were lucky enough that it came to them. I think from that standpoint, it's kind of a brilliant move.
So by the Spurs, kind of upper people.
Yes, because you haven't brought in like a manager who's trying to prove himself. You haven't brought in a manager of Spurs caliber. I think you've brought in a manager above Spurs caliber. And in that, you've given the Vertonghen's and the Eriksens and the guys that wanted that bright light of a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a bigger club, that by virtue of the manager that they brought in.
Well, Jose Mourinho is going to have to count on those players because he himself has even said that big money spending that he's done in the past is not going to happen.
I still don't believe him when he says that. For example, I don't think it's going to happen in January anyway, because you don't. Even though in recent seasons we've seen bigger than you would expect deals happening in January transfer windows historically, you don't let go of your best players in the middle of a process, right? So I'm not buying the idea that if Spurs, for example, don't finish wherever it is that they've set that bar, that they're not going to spend some big money in the summer, especially if they're able to move a guy like an Eriksson or something like that, and they can invest that money in new players.
And this is Jose Mourinho that knows how to spend money. He actually tops the list of managers who have spent the most money during his career, $1.3 billion.
Which is one of the things that I've always, that's a lot of money. It's one of the things that I've always said speaks really highly of Mourinho, right? You can talk about his style of play, whether it's entertaining or not, whether it's exciting or not.
Right.
He's had some very exciting teams, but I think what speaks super highly of him is when a team brings him in, they're willing to open up those purse strings and become one of the most expensive, one of the biggest spenders in the transfer market. And what that tells you is they see Jose Mourinho as a guarantee. If you're going to spend the money, if you're going to bring in all of those ingredients, you want the best possible chef to cook the deal, to cook the dish. And so that Mourinho was seen as that guarantee. He'll get you results, even if you don't like exactly what the taste is like.
A lot of our comment section talking about our decor here. Jose Meza, redecorate the table, guys. October was 2 months ago. Well, we were technically waiting for it to be winter,
winter
but
is
fine.
December 21st,
You know what? You guys ask, we will give you. Tomorrow we'll do a winter set here. And Ego Real, let's go. Jose will make a point today, tactically speaking. And it's been interesting what he's done tactically, getting the best out of Dele Alli, a man who was underperforming under Pochettino over past seasons. He's kind of resparked that.
I think one of the jokes, and it was sort of incorrect, one of the jokes after the move was made was everyone thought that this would bury Dele Alli, right? Because Jose Mourinho's had a sort of a history of scapegoating players, especially playmakers, especially those sort of super talented players. And so everyone looked around the squad and said, well, maybe Dele Alli is the guy that Mourinho's going to end up burying or scapegoating. And that may still be the case, but it's been the exact opposite early on. What he's done is he sort of freed up Dele Alli, put some cover behind him, allowed him to really express himself. And Dele Alli's been one of the better performers as a result.
Absolutely. Ryan Moran saying it won't look good for United if Spurs win, but maybe that needs to happen. I can't confirm that Ole is the problem. I see more issues with the talent of the players. So let's look at this match from the other side then.
That's 100% right. I keep looking at United's lineups and wondering, what are people expecting? Like, there's certain clubs that they've had a fall from grace, but it's hard for fans to accept that. I think you look at Milan, for example, a team we'll talk about later on the program, and you still want to. You're sort of historically trained to treat Milan as a European giant, but they're not. In the same way, you're historically trained to treat Manchester United as a European giant, but they're not at the moment. And so you just have to kind of accept that and lower your expectations.
Right, but the fact of the matter is that it is Manchester United. Some people saying Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been given too much time. If they do not get a result today against Tottenham, is his job on the line? Some people saying he may even be sacked.
I don't know.
Right,
I don't have
we don't
the
know,
inside
but do
information.
you think?
But it would speak less volumes, I think, losing to a Spurs who are in form and sort of buoyed by their new manager than the results they have had recently against worse opposition where they didn't get the wins anyway. I think United have gone 3 straight without a win. Two of those were draws. So I don't know that this would be worse than those results. If anything, even at home, even at Old Trafford, they should be the underdog in this matchup. And so if the United brass are waiting to see the result of Spurs to decide on the future of their manager, that to me would sound like just wildly irresponsible and short-sighted. I don't know that it's going to change things one way or the other, but it's clear that Ole is on the hot seat, win or lose this match. I also don't think that beating Mourinho is going to see them extend his contract, for example. You still have to see what happens the rest of the season. And speaking of that, I actually thought they were wrong to extend his contract when they did last season, when it was that bit of a bump that some teams get when you get a managerial change, and he was just sort of spraying the Jose Mourinho disinfectant all over Old Trafford, and that was working out for a short amount of time. Yeah, it was working out for a short period of time, but they rewarded him with a longer-term contract as a result, and that was premature. And so it does seem sort of reactionary from United.
Bob Fakema in our comment section just a couple minutes ago predicting that Ole will get sacked, and he calls that irony. But I'm going to one-up you, Bob, and say the irony would be if Pochettino then takes over Manchester United,
switch roles,
which is what the word on the street is. Would Pochettino be a good fit at this current Manchester United that you say already lack talent? Why would he take over a job in the middle of the season when he's not given a proper transfer window and not able to properly put his touch on it?
I think if he were to do that, and obviously we're speculating, it would be because he's got a long-term deal that won't see him fired depending on the results this season, right? It would be a multi-season contract where he will have, a transfer window in January and then in the summer to sort of build the squad that he would want, depending on how much money United are willing to spend, obviously, because they've spent a lot over the years. I would also say that in regards to whether Pochettino would be a good fit at United, I think Pochettino would be a good fit at any Premier League club that's not Manchester City or Liverpool. because they've got the two best managers possible in
Right.
Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. I think from there on down, there isn't a club that Pochettino wouldn't be a good fit for. Pochettino's been sounding out for years now as a potential signing for Real Madrid.
Right.
So if he's a potentially good signing for Real Madrid, he's a potentially good signing for virtually any club in the Premier League. Again, that doesn't have a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola already at the helm.
If you're Pochettino, though, do you wait the year out and see maybe what happens at Real Madrid? What
Possibly.
happens with Zinedine Zidane?
So
Would it be a rash decision of his to jump on the Manchester United bandwagon right now?
It would be a personal decision, right? I think it would depend on what the long-term project that they'd be offering would be, because Pochettino's in a privileged position. He's one of the best managers available for whatever big club needs a manager. So
Right.
would it be wise for him to maybe wait until the summer and see what other vacancies there are? Sure, but that depends on what someone like a United would be offering now in terms of money, in terms of length of contract, in terms of guarantees of what they'll do in the coming transfer markets. All of that will factor into his decision.
Bob Sutton saying Poch would lose the non-compete money if he signs with an EPL team before the summer. But what these clubs do is Manchester United will pay that money back to him somehow in the contract. So no concerns there about Pochettino's money, Bob. You're so kind, though. Brendan Burns, Poch should go to Dortmund, or if Tuchel moves on from PSG. Man United, like I said yesterday, he shouldn't even consider. Yeah, some people saying that the Manchester United job, which I think a lot of people would agree with, is not what it once was, and comes with not only a lot of pressure, but a lot of baggage that maybe a manager like Pochettino wouldn't want to take on.
And you're far enough from Sir Alex now where you at least won't draw those comparisons to Sir Alex Ferguson. But yeah, it's clearly not as attractive a job as it used to be.
No.
United look currently more like a Europa League side than a Champions League side. And when you have a Pochettino who was just 6 months ago in the Champions League final,
Right.
and you think he'll have his pick of several big clubs potentially in the summer. Yeah, United probably aren't at the top of that list, but again, it depends on what they're offering. If they're offering you more money than a Bayern Munich would, then maybe you take it,
Right. Andrew Cantura saying Poch is not going to Madrid. Zidane is sticking around regardless of results because he's going to attract Pogba and an Mbappe to Madrid. Fair point.
I think that's possible. There's a personal relationship between Zidane and Florentino Perez, and a mutual respect between the two that, I mean, they'll depart when either things get just so unbearably bad that they absolutely have to make a move, or when Zidane wants to go on his own terms. And I don't think either of those things is close to happening for Madrid.
No, a relationship that you highlighted that Bobo Vieri compared to even almost as a father-son relationship. Yeah. That's how much respect and just respect is between them. So I totally agree with you. I don't think Zidane's going anywhere anytime soon. So Poch, I mean, what other job could Pochettino take realistically?
You don't know until the summer transfer window, right? So it depends on whether the big teams meet or fail to meet their expectations. We don't know if, for example, I know people made a big deal about, he was a former Espanyol manager, so he'd never managed Barcelona. Well, Valverde was also a former Espanyol manager, and he took over Barcelona.
Right.
Granted, they didn't maybe have the same relationship, and Valverde never said he wouldn't go to Barca because of his days at Espanyol. But you have to just wait and see. We have this immediacy of results that we want to know now. And the truth is we don't know.
We need you to predict the future, Dre. That's why you're on the show.
That is why I'm on the show.
Anyway, speaking of, Barcelona, an ex-Barcelona manager, Manchester City's Pep Guardiola. City won 4-1 yesterday against Burnley. A good result for them. Still way behind Liverpool, but that's for another conversation. The big story of the day is Guardiola's father speaking with Marca and saying that he won't completely say no to a possible Guardiola return to Barcelona.
Whether players or managers, my favorite transfer stories always begin with
the dad.
So-and-so's father.
My mother's mom.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
So
His entourage.
thank you, Valenti Guardiola, for this story. But yeah, and interesting. I mean, with all of the turmoil around, well, I guess a fan turmoil really, because they're getting the results again. But around Ernesto Valverde and Barcelona. If Manchester City don't win the Premier League this season, don't win the Champions League, he has a contract until 2021, but it wouldn't be a total crazy idea to think that he would leave City in the summer.
I would have thought it was crazier before I saw, and these things may not be related at all, but it probably aren't related at all, but it sort of makes it click in my mind.
Right.
Zidane going back to Real Madrid in a way that I didn't expect, and much sooner than anybody might have expected.
Absolutely.
And say never go back, you'll ruin your legacy. And
right.
I don't know that Zidane's necessarily ruining his legacy. I think maybe the expectations at Barcelona, first of all, are completely through the roof there, because it's not just an expectation of results, it's an expectation of results in a very particular way, and in a way that is almost impossible to satisfy. Everybody wants to go to the Pep years, but even if they get Pep back, it doesn't mean they don't get Xavi back, they don't get Iniesta back, they don't get them back at that age. And so it's not the same team. Pep's dad should meet Rabiot's mom.
Radu Marinescu, thank you so much for your contribution. That's amazing. Pep's dad should meet Rabiot's mom. Back to Pep Guardiola back in Barcelona.
So it would obviously be a risk. I can't imagine a better manager for Barca than Pep. We all saw what he did, and he has sort of the ability to build those tactical puzzles to get the best out of a team that wants to play the way that Barcelona fans want Barca to play. There was also talk that he could go back to Bayern. I wasn't really buying that either.
No.
But you do eventually run out of like elite level clubs to try and win the Champions League with.
Yeah, no, and it's spot on, and I don't think it's a crazy idea either. Fabian Cardellino, I will cry of joy if Pep comes back. Yeah. I think a lot of people would. Ryan Moran saying, I wouldn't doubt it. Frank Leon saying, if Guardiola were to return, he have to 100% make sure Bartomeu and his associates are gone. Interesting. Although I think Guardiola's relationship with Bartomeu
wasn't great because of the way that they went about announcing Tito Vilanova as his replacement, virtually at the same, if I remember correctly, at the same press conference where Guardiola was saying his goodbye, they basically announced that Tito Vilanova, one of Guardiola's best friends, was taking over, and that was reportedly seen by Pep as a bit of a betrayal. They also did some very sort of un-Barcelona-esque things, like that's the same, going back to Sandro Rosell, who was the president before Bartomeu, when Bartomeu was his right-hand man. They, for example, stripped Johan Cruyff of his honorary presidency. Cruyff obviously had an enormous influence over Pep early in his career.
Right.
So, I don't know that that's like the best relationship, but those are things that can be sorted out.
Amr Bahati saying, I always thought Pep would want to be there to say farewell to Messi, and this is the next point we're going to get to. One of the guy behind his best years would love it. Messi, even in his Ballon d'Or speech, reflecting on his career, that time is flying, that he's reaching, maybe the end of his career. What an unbelievable way to end your career.
I don't buy it.
What?
I don't buy
Wouldn't you love to see it?
What I mean is I don't buy that Messi's toward the end of his career.
How many more years do you think? Bartomeu says 4.
If he goes 4, Pep goes back 4 years. They get out together.
Yeah.
Pep does talk about like the cycles of being a manager. You work in about 3 to 4 year cycles at the most, and then you expire, and a team needs fresh ideas, and your sort of message becomes stale, and it isn't coming across anymore. So actually that would be sort of like the Disney version of how to wrap up the career would be Pep Guardiola reuniting with Messi, because Pep was good for Messi's career. Pep sort of reinvented Messi as a false nine, got the best version of Messi, the version that scored 91 goals in a calendar year was under Pep. The reason, what I said I wasn't buying is I'm not buying that Messi only has 1 or 2 more seasons at an elite level, because we see him continue to add elements to his game. And one of the things that struck me, and it's something that I've argued Messi's entire career, and people look at me cross-eyed like I'm crazy, is that Messi isn't predominantly a goal scorer. He said this himself after accepting his 6 Ballon d'Ors, that he's more of a playmaker and a goal creator, but also scores goals, and that he likes to score goals. And I think that's true. Like Messi is sort of like a third of a team in and of himself, because he's creating from deep in midfield, making the pass for the goal, and then often scoring the goals himself, more often than virtually anybody else. So we've seen a version of Messi now that looks like the greatest free kick taker of all time.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I think he continues to add things to his game that make him sort of elite in different ways, as opposed to like this steady decay where if he were to depend exclusively on his speed or on his athleticism, then I would see that as a more viable thing. But I think it's his brain, it's his footballing mind that makes him elite, and he still has a few more seasons, I believe.
I would take Messi on my team at 50 years old, just sit him on a chair, and every time there's a free kick, just have him take it. And
see, that's the part that would worry me. So Visam Tapo says Pep coming back means sort of a return to the golden age, and the expectation wouldn't be exactly. It's not that it would be high; it's that it would be win the Champions League in the most delightful manner, and win another treble or bust.
Right.
Although right now I do feel like there is such vitriol toward Ernesto Valverde that anyone, not just Guardiola, sort of almost anyone would be greeted with optimism and hope at Barcelona.
Someone else saying, when we'll end the Pep conversation on this question, but that Barcelona currently have the perfect squad to recreate a Pep Guardiola golden era.
They're probably referring to the midfield, right?
And De Jong.
Signing Frankie De Jong, bringing in Artur. These are players that have that quality to like hold on to the ball, to not lose it, to create from midfield. We saw that transformation once from the Pep team to the Luis Enrique team. Barcelona went from a team that dominated in midfield to a team that dominated via its front three.
Right.
And at the moment, you're seeing a front three where Luis Suarez is getting up there in years, even though he's still scoring incredible goals and at a pretty good clip. Griezmann is still sort of trying to figure out where he fits best and trying not to get in the way of Lionel Messi. And you've got a midfield that can, under the right manager and their manager that wants to play that way, sort of dominate through possession. And so, yeah, I think that the pieces are there to play the way that Pep played years ago. But I would also say that Pep has adapted over the years, and he had a different strategy and a different style at Bayern than he did at Barca, and a different strategy and a different style at City than he does at Barcelona. What he's always been for me is sort of a puzzle builder, the guy who can look at the pieces that he has and get the most out of that team. He's thought of as this like dogmatic manager, as if he only has like one way and it's like his way all the time. But I think his one way is he wants players who can pass and players who can dribble. Now, how he assembles those pieces depends on what the pieces themselves are.
Well, guys, it would be an exciting one, but unfortunately we can't predict the future, so we'll just wait until he decides to go
It'd be exciting.
back to the future. Let's move on to Zlatan because we are running out of time on the show. Zlatan in GQ Italia says that he is going to return to Italy and go to a team that needs to return to winning ways. Obviously, all signs pointing to AC Milan. Is it a good fit?
This isn't like when he said he was going to Spain and it was like for an ad, right?
No. I think this is legit. This is the legit one.
Milan, we talked about Milan a little bit earlier on as being sort of a fallen giant who can use all the help they can get. I think Piontek looked a little bit like a mirage. My good friend Matteo Bonetti compared him to Jeremy Lin, who was in the NBA and like took the NBA by storm, and then he thought, well, like this guy looks like he's going to be incredible, and it turned out to be sort of short-lived.
Right.
So could they use the help? Absolutely. Is it the same Zlatan that was at Milan previously? No. It obviously he's older. He's not going to run nearly as much. He'll still score some incredible goals. I think he'll help, but I'm not even like 100% convinced that. Here's the point. Milan aren't one player away. They're not one striker away from sort of a return to their greatest years. That said, Zlatan would still be more of an addition than anything else.
This seems like a project that's been going on for years that just isn't taking off. This AC Milan
there's something, this is not scientific, but there's something sort of culturally wrong at Milan where there's sort of a lack of accountability. They've just gone through manager after manager, some of them better than others.
Right.
But there isn't that sort of consistency, that belief in a long-term project. They've had ownership changes, they've had financial troubles, they've had big turnover in players. So it's sort of the exact opposite from what we've seen with Juve's consistency, where Juve can add almost any player, and there's sort of a winning culture there and a hierarchy, and everybody falls in line, and they know the manager's not going anywhere anytime soon, and so there's sort of a personal accountability and expectation that hasn't been there at Milan for a long, long time now.
Because I feel like we've been talking about this for years now, and it's just not getting any better. Emre Bahati with some questions. What role would Italy have in Zlatan? Well, I'm not sure about that one, but would he be a part-time player? Would he want that part-time role? He can't play all 90 throughout the season.
I mean, we don't know Zlatan personally, but we know he wants to be relevant, right? And I think going back to Milan would make a splash. It would be relevant. And you look at that squad and you think, yeah, he should be. Right now, the most limiting factor to his minutes would be his age and his fitness. If he's in good shape, then yes, he's a player that you would start.
Right.
Sensible.
Ryan Moran throwing some shade at CR7. I will laugh my rocks off if Zlatan comes to Italy and outscores Ronaldo in the season. And that comment's getting a lot of likes. So Ryan.
This is unprompted, right? Like we were taking a shot at Cristiano, but I will say this. Cristiano was not the best player in Serie A last season. At the Oscars di Calcio, he's just won Serie A's Player of the Year honors. He wasn't a top scorer. He wasn't the best player. He is, however, the most recognizable, the biggest name on the biggest team, and as a result, he won that award. But I don't believe that was the most deserved honor for Cristiano.
I think a lot of people would agree with you.
I would have put Fabio Quagliarella ahead of him.
I mean, just based purely on the actual stats. So, Paulo Monteiro saying Milan need all the help they can get, and Zlatan can provide some goals and maybe a morale boost. And I think that's exactly what he's there to provide.
Yes.
What else do you want from Zlatan?
Well,
anyway,
entertainment value.
Yeah, and also, headlines, which we all like. Anyway, Ligue 1 action today. You're on the call, PSG, Nantes.
Yes. This is a weird one for PSG because it's very rare for them to get, at this point of the season, 7 full days off between games. So they had their game against Monaco postponed due to bad weather in the Principality this weekend. And that doesn't bode well for Nantes. Like, Nantes have been very good this season, but they were as high as second place as recently as week 11. We're in week 16 now. They've taken a bit of a nosedive, got back to winning ways, beating Toulouse, but it was 10-man Toulouse who were down to 10 men after just 21 minutes this weekend. So now a team like Nantes that have been struggling of late go to the Parc des Princes against a well-rested Paris with a healthier Neymar. it's going to be difficult for Goor Koosman, I think.
Absolutely. And speaking a little bit about yesterday's and teams on the rise, Marseille on an unprecedented 5-game
Andre
win streak.
Villas-Boas is absolutely killing it there. I think he's at 42 years old now, and he's at a really, really good place where OM have a better squad than what they performed like under Rudy Garcia.
Right.
We're running out of time, but I'll leave it with this. Andre Villas-Boas has been, outside of anything going on in Paris, maybe the most exciting thing happening in Ligue 1 this season.
And Ligue 1 is a league to watch. It's not Farmers League, as you guys say, so you need to watch every single match. Anyway, this is a reminder that you can catch Dre on the call for that. That one kicks off at 3 o'clock. So
3:05, but yeah, join us at 3.
Yeah, 3 o'clock. And who are you on the call with?
I believe it's Eric.
Eric. Perfect. Yay, it'll be fun. Anyway, we'll see you guys mañana. Bye.